Hi everyone, I'm Sam.
I'm Lexi.
And I'm Christi, and you are tuned in to Make It Make Sense. This week we'll be discussing emotional spending.
And to start off, we have an icebreaker question. Have any of you made any purchases recently? Was the purchase motivated by your emotions? And if so, what emotions?
Recently, I made a purchase of a heating pad, and that's because like my body was aching and I was not feeling well. And I was like, you know what? I need something to help me out right here. So I had went on Amazon and I was like mid pain and I had bought me a heating pad.
I've made a lot of purchases recently that I probably shouldn't have made, but I did. I made the purchase with this black cosmetics company called Minted Cosmetics, and I had bought like some eyeshadows and like lip gloss or whatever. And that's because I'm supporting Black businesses. And then I also bought art because I really wanted these portraits, and they're like 3 Beyonce portraits, and it'd be so cute in my room. So I was happy, but also, I don't know, I felt anxious, like I needed to buy something.
I've also bought some art recently. I bought mine though kind of a while ago. I'm just waiting for it to arrive. It's been a piece that I've been eyeing for like over a year, and I just haven't purchased it because it's kind of expensive. Like, well, I have a little extra money. Let's see what we can do with this. So yeah, I bought the print. And then I also bought myself some new earrings. They're so small, you can't see them in this, but I'm wearing them right now.
Are they hoops? Oh, they're cute. I see them. That's cute.
Thank you.
So let's get started with today's subject. How would you define emotional or impulsive spending?
I think I would define it as not really, I don't want to say like not thinking practically, but not really thinking too much about the purchase, just something that like you go for kind of on a whim. Like it is still impulsive, maybe just based on your emotions, and it doesn't have to be sad or mad. It can be happy. I want to purchase something to treat myself. It's just anything that you do really quickly, where like the emotions are like the main driving factor for the purchase.
Oh yeah, I definitely agree with Lexi. Yeah, it's just more of like it's not really logic. It's just strictly like emotional based. Maybe you had like a bad day, or you had a good day. You're like, you know what? Just like Lexi said, I'm just gonna do something nice for myself. So it's just more of just not logic. It's just strictly how you feel.
Yeah, I think those are great definitions. I think it's good too, like Christy mentioned, to acknowledge that it's not necessarily like when you're in a bad mood. It can also be when you're happy. Because I feel like a lot of people, when they think about emotional spending, they think about like, oh, I'm upset or I'm frustrated at something, so I need to go like pig out and buy a bunch of fast food. But it could also be like when you're feeling happy or joy or whatever other emotion you could think of. Do you tend to see trends in your spending habits when you're emotional spending, such as food splurges or clothing?
Yeah, my biggest thing is not really like clothing because in my mind I tell myself I'm going to lose weight, so I'm not going to buy any more clothes right now. But mine will most definitely be more towards food. And I have gotten more control in terms of emotional spending, but like it used to be really bad, like just like my like freshman year in college, where I'm just like, oh my God, I just failed that exam. I'm about to go order me some Chinese food and watch Netflix for the rest of the night. And so I most definitely did like more impulsive like food spending when I was more like in a more negative state.
Yeah, similar to Christy, I also don't typically tend to buy clothes a whole bunch, but food for sure. I have a wicked sweet tooth. It's almost impossible for me to get through dinner without eating something sweet afterwards. And if I don't have something sweet in my house, I will absolutely order something, which it's like a mixed bag. I live close to a milkshake place, and the milkshakes are like ginormous. It's only one size. It's hard for me to finish, but I've been going there a lot since no one can go anywhere and it's in walking distance. So that's been like my go-to spot lately.
For me, I actually do buy a lot of clothes. Even though, like, yeah, I do say, like, I have weight goals and stuff, like, I want to lose weight, but I still shop a lot because then I'll be like, well, I need clothes for a certain event. And in order for me to look good at this event, then I need to go buy it. So, like, I kind of try to convince myself to buy clothing, which is not a good habit, but I also do splurge on food. So, like, if it's payday, I'll give myself like a nice meal, or I might buy like a more expensive coffee drink instead of buying like something during like a happy hour when I know it's gonna be like $1 or $2 versus spending $5 on that same drink at a different time. Are any of you familiar with the concept of Maslow's hierarchy of needs?
Yes, I studied it a lot in like 4 of my classes.
Yeah, it's a very popular subject. So, in thinking about the topic for today, I also was thinking about like or everybody's hierarchy of needs. With Maslow's hierarchy of needs, it ranks your basic, psychological, and self-fulfillment needs, with self-actualization being the highest. Does this chart change how your opinions on emotional spending? Why or why not?
I don't think that it really changes my opinion on emotional spending. I think it's more of just a guideline on why we spend the way we do spend and what the kind of trigger. I think understanding this chart will allow us to be more mindful of why we're making the decisions that we're making. So yeah, I think it's just more of just giving clarification on why you do the things that you do.
This is my first time actually really looking at this chart before. I know you two are both familiar with it. I think the two things that are kind of surprising for me is the love and belonging and self-esteem as far as making purchases.
Mhm.
I don't know, I just think those are interesting ways to categorize certain purchases. And that's, I mean, I don't really, but yeah, I just think that's interesting.
When I took consumer behavior, like part of what we learned was about like self-esteem or like wanting to fit in. So like you
Mhm.
might buy like a name brand purse because you want to fit within with like a certain social group. So that's why you're making that purchase. And like I know that's very common in high school especially. So something I was thinking about when I was viewing this chart is maybe like your hierarchy of needs varies depending on where you are in your state in life. Like if you're older, then I feel like this chart would probably reflect your spending habits. But I feel like a teenager or a young adult that's like in college, they might have it ranked a little differently where, safety isn't one of their top two priorities. They might have that like higher on the list, or not higher as in like they're
Mhm.
fulfilled by it, but it's not like a basic need anymore. They just kind of don't care. I don't know. That was like a lot.
What about for self-esteem? Like people make purchases, like is that what you were saying? The self-esteem to like maybe get something to fit in with a group? That one's confusing to me.
Yeah, it's more of like trying to play off for self-esteem. It's more of just trying to fulfill your self-esteem. So whether that's making a purchase or that is just trying to, I don't know, find a group, finding that action to help you fulfill that self-esteem need. That's more of what that's talking about.
Yeah, and it could also kind of be like a lot of people when they feel like they've made it, they make like a certain purchase. So like let's say you're like a famous celebrity and you buy a Tesla because you're like, oh, I made it because I can afford this Tesla, and that boosted your self-esteem. But it could also, I guess, fit into the love and belonging category. Like, I won't fit into like this upper class group unless I have like this certain materialistic item, if that makes
Mm-hmm.
sense.
Yeah, that makes sense. Just an interesting pyramid. Yeah, I think I like the basic needs, psychological needs, and self-fulfillment the most for
Mm-hmm.
explaining going up the pyramid.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm sure like it's better explanations out there than what I said. But
Mm-hmm.
definitely like look more into it because it is a popular subject. I know like it's been mentioned in a few business courses I've taken. So
Mm-hmm.
if you're ever curious, take a business class.
Or YouTube it.
So what are some tips for students that may regret an impulsive purchase?
The 48-hour rule is one that
Yeah.
comes up a lot. If you want to get something, put it in the cart, wait on it for 48 hours. If you don't even remember it's in the cart, then it's like, okay, why are you getting it? If you're still seriously thinking about it, then go on ahead and go for it.
Yeah, definitely. It is a thing called buyer's remorse, to where after you purchase something, you're like, oh my gosh, like I didn't even really want this. Why did I purchase it? So like just making sure one, you're able to return whatever you bought. One thing I'll be like mindful of is maybe instead of using like your credit card to buy something, use your debit card instead, because you're more likely to not spend as much money when you use your debit card compared to your credit card. Yeah, also just ask yourself for a second and ask yourself like, yo, like why am I even wanting to buy this right now? You can kind of give yourself a reality check.
Some advice that I would give students that may regret an impulsive purchase is, in addition to what you all were saying, is to not necessarily beat yourself up either about making that purchase, because maybe in that moment, like, you may have felt fulfilled by it and it did fulfill one of your needs that you had at that time. So let's say you didn't necessarily need to get an ice cream sundae, but it did fulfill your hunger, which was essential. So even though you might not have got the right thing, or you might spend a little more than was ideal, like, don't beat yourself up over a one-time thing. Now, if it's a frequent everyday pattern, that's another thing. And that's when you come into financial fitness and we go over your budget, plugging our services. But anyway, if it's not something like that, then yeah, I feel like you shouldn't be too hard on yourself, because I find like for me, sometimes I can be hard on myself when it comes to that, especially working in this job, because I'm like, I have to be a role model for other students and set the standard and an example for them. And if I'm not practicing what I'm preaching, then it's like, what's the point? But I feel like we're all human and we have a hierarchy of needs. So that's why, we have to fulfill those needs every once in a while. But I'll get off my soapbox.
The last thing I would mention would be to just, maybe it'll be best to say, hey, I want to designate, money's tight, but you want to designate a time where you can really enjoy yourself. So you'd be like, you know what, once a month, I'm just going to pick this day and I'm going to just splurge. So maybe set a budget aside of $300. You're like, okay, I'm going to buy this food from this restaurant, and I'm going to buy these outfits that I've been eyeing, or this watch or whatever. So that can kind of help mitigate some of that impulsiveness when you can reward yourself at the end.
That's the perfect segue into our final question. So, how do you recommend that college students reduce their emotional or impulsive spending habits?
One of my mottos that I tell myself in the morning is to do something today that your future self will thank you for. That kind of just reminds me of just, I just want to do something that will be beneficial to me in the future. I'm like, yeah, I really did that, and now I'm happy that I did that. So my advice would be to you, like, yeah, you want to spend maybe that $10 coffee, but put that $10 towards your debt or something, and you can see it build up over time, or put that $10 in your bank account. Just keep it there, put in your savings, and you can see it grow over time. And that can help you establish like good habits, healthy habits. Again, it's just being mindful of your situation. We're in a recession right now, money is tight. So like, you may have like a stable job right now or something like that, but you never know what other unexpected things can happen. So it'll be better to be safe now than to be sorry later.
Yeah, I'll also add having long-term goals is something that's really helpful, and actually naming those goals. I feel like a lot of people are like, yeah, I have goals, but like haven't really like fleshed that out. So thinking about those long-term goals, especially right before impulse purchases, especially if you've already like purchased that thing, like you were saying, Christy, maybe a few times earlier in the week, and then remembering like, oh yeah, I actually really want to do this thing in like a few months, and I can't do that unless I save some money. So remembering in the back of your head, like, oh, I still have some other things that I really want to do that I haven't been able to do.
And my last thing would be to set up a weekly budget for yourself in terms of spending. My mom told me, she said, hey, Christy, put aside $50 a week, or just for, random, maybe want to take an Uber or getting some food or something like that. Just set that money aside. And then when you see that your money's getting low, you're like, okay, you're almost low. So you got to make some choices. So having that set budget each week could really be helpful.
Yeah, that's great advice. Thank you, both of you, for joining me today.
Thank you all for tuning in to our 8th episode. Be sure to follow us on Instagram, Facebook, and Twitter for more updates.
Perfect.